Welcome to another edition of the Game Preview Podcast. Ethan Greenberg, Cynthia Frelund on the short week. Quick turnaround for the New York Jets after taking on the Detroit Lions. Unfortunately, losing the game. Now the green and white. 500 on the year, 7-7, welcoming in a Jacksonville Jaguars team that, Cynthia, very much like the Detroit Lions last week, very hot right now. 4-2 in their last 6. Before we get into the matchup specifically from just like a bird's eye view, what have you seen from this Jacksonville team that's enabled them to turn it around pretty quickly?
Play, action, passing. Play, action, passing. That's the answer. If you're looking at Trevor Lawrence, he's since week 9, something happened and they figured out the play action worked for them. Why? Well, what am I looking at here? Well, he's only thrown 1 interception since that time. In fact, before last week, he had the longest streak going of no interceptions. So that's interesting. It was like 10-0, 10 touchdowns to 0 interceptions. So that's good. Why does this work? 74% completion percentage using play action. Now, where does Travis Etienne run? Great question. That question really helps outside runs, which, by the way, the Jets defense, they are the best at limiting outside runs, negative 55 rushing yards over expected allowed. So the answer is play action that comes off of efficient running and efficient rushing that typically has come from outside the tackles rushes, where, by the way, Etienne's like number 6 amongst running backs since week 9 and rushing yards over expected on those outside runs. But again, Jets all season long, not allowing those runs.
All right, we're going to talk about Trevor Lawrence in the second quarter. Naturally, he's been playing out of his mind, to your point. But let's just start with Zach Wilson in the first quarter, because Robert Saleh said it will indeed be Zach Wilson again starting against the Jacksonville Jaguars. That makes it his second consecutive start. Kind of a weird game for Zach against the Lions because he goes over 300 passing yards. He had a lot of chunk plays, but it also felt like there were spurts of when the offense, not the office, but I guess the offense's office is MetLife Stadium, which they will be again on Thursday. But it felt like the offense was kind of lacking consistency, although it was hitting some explosive plays. What did you make of the way that the offense came together with Zach last week?
I mean, Zach had a nice game. Like, it wasn't his fault that anything didn't go the Jets' way. So it was interesting when you look at this one. Obviously, injuries to the running backs, that one took a toll because that, just like I talked about with, when we talk about Trevor Lawrence, we want to talk about play action and the ability to run. And this was the first time we hadn't seen efficient running in a little bit of a time. In fact, it's like the first time the Lions held the team to a low passing number, or rushing number rather, in like all of their games this season. So that injury made a big difference. However, I'm going to give Garrett Wilson a bunch of credit here because his ability to run different routes and be effective and efficient and be where the quarterback's expecting is really, really profound and makes a big difference for Zach Wilson. Those deep passes, 10-plus air yard plays, he caught 4 of them for over 90 yards. Like, that was a really big help for this team. And by the way, Garrett Wilson, if you're looking for like reasons to tell your friends why he should be your offensive rookie of the year, he's caught at least 4 passes on 9 different routes in the route tree. So most rookie receivers, you see maybe 2 or 3, just a more limited number. They like have their things. They line up only in the slot and they do whatever. They line up out wide and they do another thing, right? But Garrett Wilson's been super versatile and from every level of the field. So that's where Zach Wilson really got help because they found the mismatch on a deeper pass. And they're like, okay, just that one, good. And it really helps Zach Wilson out.
And Garrett Wilson, 4 receptions, 98 yards, did not find the end zone. In consecutive weeks now, he's broken Jets rookie receiver records. He broke Keyshawn Johnson's rookie receiving record at Buffalo in terms of a single season. Then he broke Wayne Krabet's single season receptions record as a rookie with 4 receptions last week against Detroit. The next thing that he needs to check off would be 1,000 yards. He'd be the first Jets rookie receiver to do that. Right now, he's at 966. Definitely very feasible against a Jacksonville defense that, again, this game feels like eerily similar, I feel like, Cynthia, from a statistics standpoint. And from a Jets offense vantage point, Detroit's defense wasn't all that in a bag of chips. You liked when I said that last week, so I had to bring it back. And Zach Wilson, 317 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick. But Jacksonville's defense feels like it's kind of the same, in the same stratosphere as Detroit's in terms of the amount of yards they let up. So what's different between the two of them that maybe is unique to their scheme?
Well, the biggest difference, and we're going to start with a stat and then we'll get into why. The stat is that the Lions are causing turnovers. They had the longest streak in the NFL, 13 turnovers in 13 games. The Jags aren't doing that as efficiently and effectively. The Jags are winning because Trevor Lawrence is being effective and their offense is winning them games. And whereas the Lions were really like, their offense was already good and their defense just got ratcheted up just a little bit better to help them out. So when I'm looking at this defense, they have started to intermittently bring a lot, like some games it's a lot more pressure. A different Josh Allen will be bringing the heat in this one. I love the same name ones. I think like the Bills should trade for Josh Allen so that we could have just confuse everyone, especially because, Michael Carter on this team, whatever.
Of course.
So same name players is my favorite, but they've been able to bring the heat intermittently, but they're really targetable in different areas. Like I go back and watch that Cowboys game and look where CeeDee Lamb was effective. I understand that the Cowboys lost, but when you look at CeeDee Lamb on intermediate routes, that was an area where you could exploit, which means good things for Garrett Wilson because, I think CeeDee Lamb was like 4 for 94. I think it was over 90 yards on intermediate targets, 10 to 19 air yard attempts. And he was really efficient there, which means they're targeting a different level of the defense. When they're seeing something, they're saying, okay, well, we're going to use a different level because CeeDee Lamb is quite versatile as well. So point being is there's areas to exploit in this secondary for sure.
Well, I do think that, to your point, like, yes, the Cowboys lost. They still put up 34 points. And not to mention, like guys like CeeDee Lamb, to your point, he finished the game with 7 catches, 126 yards. Dak completed 76.7% of his passes on 30 attempts. You don't lose
when that happens.
Yeah, exactly. And the Jets defense, I mean, I guess you wouldn't imagine the Dallas Cowboys to let up 40 points either. But you would think that something would have gone horribly wrong from a Jets defensive perspective to allow 40 points, considering how well the Jets defense has done the past couple of weeks specifically. And even in the Detroit game, I mean, they let up 1 touchdown, and it just was the worst timing possible for the Jets on the 4th and 1. So the Jets did a great job defensively speaking. But to wrap up the first quarter about Zach Wilson, this week, short week, no real practice. Both teams conduct walkthroughs. What do you expect from Zach Wilson and what will be the number 1 overall pick from 2021 and the number 2 overall pick from 2021 in a rematch of last year's game, which, by the way, Zach Wilson had a 52-yard touchdown run?
I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I just wanted to put it out there.
Hope that doesn't happen. Because that would mean some weird things, like let's get the run game going here. So I think some things to really look at. I think we saw something pretty cool from CJ Uzomah. Like the tight end position became more and more valuable in this game. I do think that one will continue to pick up. So I think targeting different levels of their defense that are specifically tailored to problem areas. But now we saw you were like, oh, Uzomah, I see you, bro. Like it's there. So I think that's what we'll see. And I think different, obviously, I don't know about you, but I don't know who's exactly healthy from the run situation. And as soon as we kind of get an understanding of who's actually going to be available, then the run game will be a big and important factor in this one. Because like I said, the Jags have been able to bring the heat on some plays. They're not the number 1 pressure defense in the league or anything, but they are able to bring pressure, and that will be a key factor. And by the way, both of these teams are really looking like this is might as well be a playoff game because this could really determine who goes to the postseason.
Yeah, this is a huge game in terms of playoff implications. The Jets at 7-7, the Jaguars at 6-8. And for the Jets, I mean, the narrative has always been since Sunday, like, it's do or die. Like, the Jets have to try to win out to really control their own destiny as much as they can. And DJ Reed, I think, said it best. He was like, we didn't want other teams to have, like, a say in our destiny where you're hoping for this, you're hoping for that. And unfortunately for the Jets, that is now the case after losing to the Lions, which brings us to the second quarter, because if the Jets want a chance to win this game, they have to limit Trevor Lawrence. To your point, he was so good since week 9. He leads the league in completion percentage and passer rating. It feels like the Jaguars have found their franchise quarterback when you look at it from a statistics standpoint. And I mean like surface level statistics. What about furthermore than that? Like what makes him so good specifically since week 9 and on? Whatever clicked for him is clearly working.
Yeah, I think part of what they're doing, shifts in motion. Wow, that was bad English. Fifth of a shifts and motions. There we go. The words are coming out of my mouth. So shifts and motions are very helpful for young quarterbacks in being able to diagnose defenses, right? Is it man? Is it not man? Is it so? Like, what am I looking at here? And being in more manageable downs and distances because of that almost 40 or 74% completion percentage using play action, that has really allowed him to start seeing the defense in a way where he can pick the right receiver to target. In last week's game, it was clearly Zay Jones 3 times in the end zone. So when I'm looking at what he's done well, I'm going to say this, and then we have to do an asterisk here, because the Cowboys last week, when they didn't blitz, Trevor Lawrence was like, peace out, 3 touchdowns, we're all good. Like, no, don't even try. The blitz was where he threw the pick. But it is a totally different, their scheme, Dan Quinn's defense, totally different than what we're going to see from Robert Saleh. So, like, the fact that the Jets can blanket the secondary, that is a big, like, helpful note for the Jets defense. It won't look the same. The Jets are pressuring at 30.4%. This year, which is 4th best in the NFL. They rarely need to blitz. They would rather leave the defensive backs back there. That is a better strategy, in part because now you have to remember they'll be without their left tackle, Cam Robinson. So being able to, one, we talked about it, stop that outside zone, that outside run from Travis Etienne or whoever the runner may be, and 2, get pressure, which now without Cam Robinson becomes a lot more manageable for the Jets. That's the 2 ways to do it, because Trevor Lawrence still has pretty significant splits when he's under pressure versus when he's not under pressure. You just have to remember that blitz doesn't always equal pressure, right? It's an attempt at pressure, but it doesn't always mean pressure. And often if you can bring pressure with 4, the quarterback is forced to be in the pocket, maybe out of the pocket. Think about it a little bit, hold on to the ball for a long time. And that's where we've seen Trevor Lawrence have his passer rating goes down significantly.
Yeah, I think that it's very important to keep in mind 2 players. One is Quinnen Williams, obviously, with the calf strain. We'll see what his status is. Robert Saleh said the Jets are going to take it up pretty much till kickoff or till game time. The other player comes from the Jacksonville side. It's Cam Robinson's replacement. That's Walker Little, who is a decorated player out of high school, had an up-and-down career in Stanford. Then he's a second-round pick for the Jags, and he's been their swing tackle. Now he's going to play for Cam Robinson. So this is Carl Lawson versus Walker Little. If you're a Jets fan, you're imagining advantage Lawson here. And to Cynthia's point, that needs to be the case for the Jets to get pressure on Trevor Lawrence. Now, in terms of his receiving core and just the options around him, Cynthia, Robert Saleh said that there's a lot of speed there, and there's definitely a lot of new faces. When you think of Christian Kirk, obviously that was the big-ticket free agent that everyone was surprised at the contract he got. Evan Ingram, the former Giant, joins the Jaguars, the tight end. Then you're looking at, I know Travis Etienne was a rookie last year with Lawrence, but he was out all last year, so he's essentially a new player there. Zay Jones, and then Marvin Jones has been the guy there for a couple years. Is this like a sneaky good core around Trevor Lawrence? Because it feels like they have a lot of pieces that maybe were overlooked at the beginning of the year just because of the way the Jags were playing.
I think that I'm going to call them sneaky good, but I think the thing that's even more important is the stylistic fit. We saw this in Philadelphia when Doug Peterson had Carson Wentz. It sounds wild to say this, but I mean, there were like rumblings of like Carson Wentz MVP. That was real. Yeah. I didn't make that up, So part of what was going on during that stretch was a multitude of different pass catchers, and Carson Wentz was spreading the ball around. He didn't have it was like 4 or 5 different guys who had like a significant number of yards and catches or whatever. It wasn't just like funneling it to one person or maybe even 2. It was really like spreading the ball around. And that was a real key. If you notice, when Trevor Lawrence has started to really pick things up, it's now he understands these are my different reads. This is my different checks. This is my different, these are the different options that I have on every single play and the multitude of pass catchers. So yes, it's more that it's a stylistic fit. Like I wouldn't say like plug and play any quarterback into this system and you'd have the same like results. I think they're really figuring out meaning if you put a different coach there, and they didn't have that same style, it probably wouldn't look the same. So you have to give Doug Peterson a lot of credit for finding the right guys that kind of fit, because any one of those guys in and of themselves, we were kind of look, Christian Kirk's contract, we weren't wrong to say it was huge for without knowing, right? Like, but okay, they paid it. Great. That's sunk cost now, right? But at the end of the day, it's not like you're adding Tyreek Hill, who
Right.
his speed and yak ability is just, it is game changing. So none of these guys in and of themselves are game changing, but the sum of the parts has really fit Doug Peterson's style. And now Trevor Lawrence can execute it. That's how I would mathematically say it, but in words.
The only thing I was going to say to end the second quarter was that Christian Kirk's 966 yards is ironically the same exact as Garrett Wilson.
I noticed
anyway,
that.
That's halftime. So let's rip the Band-Aid off here, Cynthia. Is your Christmas shopping done? Your holiday shopping?
Next question.
Okay. All right. On to the next one. What is your favorite? So we talked about this today in the office. Have you watched the movie Klaus on Netflix?
No.
Oh, it is incredible. Yes. It is. I've said this exact saying 3 times today, and this will be the 4th. It is non-negotiable.
Great.
To watch Klaus.
I'll do it. Good one.
You might need a box of tissues next to you because it's heartwarming.
Is it a family flick?
It's a family flick.
Okay.
Yep.
Perfect.
Yep.
We can watch it together then. Great. Always need a good recommendation for a Christmas movie, Christmas time movie.
That's exactly what you need. Klaus, Netflix. It's animated, but it's not like old school animated. It's like new school, so it doesn't feel super animated. It's great. It's incredible.
So
I would highly
Thank
suggest
you. I
that.
appreciate that.
Yeah, if anyone else who's listening needs any recommendations, watch Klaus. By the way, we do look very like holiday festive, although.
Listen, I win. I have the mug.
You do. I have the water bottle.
Not even close.
Not the same?
No. I liked how you described it before. It's like I've got my Gotham green logo, and then the inside is the stealth black. There's also, there's the coffee.
Yep. And the Spotlight White. The Spotlight White mug with the Gotham green accent.
Oof. I mean, I love how you describe it perfectly.
Do you go iced coffee in the winter at all, or you're always hot
So
coffee?
I usually do, I prefer iced coffee, but my voice tends to like hot coffee better. My throat, my voice, the whole thing, you get that nice, the nice soothing tones, not like the but I like the taste of cold coffee better.
That is exactly why I drink tea, because I don't like coffee and I go tea.
Wish I liked tea. I just don't.
Yeah, I get it. It has to be a mint tea or an orange tea, and I'm in. Other than that, I'm way out. Like Earl Grey, chamomile, any of that stuff, not great for me.
Got it.
So, do you have any halftime questions or prompts?
I guess I want to know. I mean, your weekend is pretty open. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
Because you kind of got like a great holiday gift, right? Here's a weekend.
Okay. That is a fantastic point. I thank you very much for noticing that. So what I'm going to do is absolutely nothing.
Perfect. That's the best answer.
It's going to be great.
That's the best answer.
So Friday, it's supposed to rain all day. I will probably be in my apartment watching movies all day, not budging from the couch.
Love it.
Saturday, I will be baking a cake with my dad or Sunday.
What kind of cake?
So it is a 7 or 9 layer chocolate cake with vanilla, it's a vanilla cake with chocolate frosting on it, and you're supposed to put it in the freezer so it forms. It's not a hot cake. It's not a room temperature cake. It is a cold chocolate vanilla cake. It is incredible. It's my favorite thing that we make.
I'm going to need to see a picture of this. It sounds amazing.
Yeah. It is incredible, and it is a family recipe that's been handed down probably like 2 generations now.
Love that.
And my dad uses like his grandmother's hand mixer that looks like a Hogwarts train from the front, and when you plug it in, it sounds like and then it slowly like starts to get going, and then the egg beater starts to
Love it.
Oh yeah, it's a family tradition at this point.
I love that.
And then other than that, nothing. Football, cake, and movies.
That's a great weekend.
Unfortunately, I would ask you what you're going to do, but I think you're just going to tell me that you're going to work.
Yep, we have 2 game day mornings. We have Saturday game day morning and Sunday game day morning. So I will be game day morning-ing.
Yeah, that sounds good. Game day morning-ing. Yep.
Yep. Twice.
And so does that mean that you don't have to get anybody gifts other than your coworkers because you won't be seeing them, or you're still on the hook for that?
Still on the hook.
Yeah. Tough.
Still on the hook.
So when are you going to do like a gift exchange? Monday?
Usually it's like here and there, stop by, blah, blah, blah. Luckily, my family will all be here so they can help coordinate. It's a lot of work,
It's tough. And most importantly, have you purchased something for Gordy?
Yes. Actually, and Gordy's done with his Christmas shopping. Gordy got the entire family matching PJs.
Wow. Gordy knows what's up.
To his bandana.
Yeah, Gordy knows. Gordy's like quickly immersed himself into the Frelund family here.
I mean, he's really cute. So
he is really cute.
He's so cute. He just ate my shoe earlier this morning, but other than that, he's very cute.
Well, maybe he wanted some hand-fed peanut butter covered kibble, and instead he's like, you know what, Mom,
I'll
I'm gonna
take her shoe. I'm gonna eat your shoe instead.
I don't think we can top that, so we're gonna have to move out of halftime right into the third quarter. Let's talk about the Jets defense a little more. Sauce Gardner, not really seeing targets, Cynthia. He was not targeted, I believe, a single time against the Detroit Lions, and Robert Saleh's like, hey, he's going to have to talk to Richard Sherman about that kind of stuff because that's what happens when you're a good player.
Yep.
How rare is it for someone who's a rookie to not be thrown at?
Quite rare. I think you have a massive advantage in the league, especially right now, if you have a corner who even is pretty good. In fact, right now, PFF rates Sauce as the number one corner in the entire league. Not number one among rookies. Number one, period, full stop, whatever. And his coverage grade is the highest by, I don't even know what they're not percentage points, but by several number grades. I don't know, whatever.
Yeah. Several points? I don't know what
several points. We'll say points, right? So at the end of the day, when you're looking at their coverage grade, then I look at my computer vision. And the cool thing that I came up with WinShare is you get credit for not being thrown at, meaning, it'd be nice to be like, he was thrown at 85 times and only allowed 7 yards in coverage. Well, that's great, but you know what's even better? We won't throw to you. So if you're on our best guy, Amon-Ra St. Brown, we won't throw to him. You know why? We don't want to deal with you. We're actually going to be smart and not do that to ourselves. So that was actually, so when you look to see his win share ranking, I mean, you'd be hard pressed to convince me anyone else should be your defensive rookie of the year. You'd be really hard pressed.
Period. Full stop. Mm-hmm. Robert Saleh said something similar in his in our coaches interview every week the interview airs on CBS every Sunday morning at 7:30 in the morning on the East Coast. So if you're on the West Coast,
4:30 in the morning my time.
Yeah, I was going to say, make sure to just look at the archive on NewYorkJets.com or YouTube.
I look at all the
archives.
I'm just not going to watch it live. I love you,
but I'm not
fine. I'm actually up then. I'm up then, but I got to go to work.
You're up at 4:30 in the morning on Sunday?
Every Sunday I have to be into the office by then. So I'm driving through Inglewood, scared, but I'm good.
Okay. All right. Well, on that note, in terms of this Jets defense for this week, obviously every aspect of defense is important. Is there a specific matchup or a specific player for the Jets that maybe should be a little more in focus this week?
I mean, look, that the front, I want to know if Quinnen Williams is playing. I mean, Bryce Huff did really well. He had a 33.3% individual pressure rate last game, which is great, a third of dropbacks. And of course, the team overall, 30.4 and rarely using 5 pass rushers. So I think that's going to be to me, the key is what is this defensive line doing, both against the run and against the pass? Because I told you those outside runs have been absolutely key to getting play action going. And minus 55, that's the Jets number for the amount of rushing yards over expected allowed. So it's rushing yards under expected by 55, which is the best in the league from week 1. From the jump, they've been great at it. So that's, to me, the defensive line is really the key factor here, because because that changes everything for the options. We talked about the optionality that Trevor Lawrence has, and it changes the options completely if he's under pressure, true pressure, or if if his receivers are blanketed. So when I'm looking at this one, it's like, what is that line doing and how are they stopping the run?
And Travis Etienne, like he's so shifty. I mean, even going back to his days at Clemson, like that was his thing. Is he's fast, he's shifty, and I feel like the rapport or the reports from all the draft analysts were like, you know what? We'll see how he is in between the tackles, and that'll determine how good of a player he is. And so far, especially last week, Travis Etienne coming off of a good game where he had 19 carries, 103 yards, did not score, and then also had 24 yards through the air. But let's move to the fourth quarter, Jags defense, because this is an interesting unit, I think. Rayshon Jenkins had hell of a game, the safety. He led the team with 18 tackles, which is ridiculous. He had 2 interceptions that game. And then Foye Oluokun, the former Atlanta Falcon, is a tackling machine. He had 14 last week. He's had at least 14 in like 4 or 5 straight games. He leads the NFL in tackles. Is this a defense that has good players and is underperforming, or like what's the story there?
I mean, when I'm charting that game and looking at it, the first thing I noticed is I think that the Cowboys maybe with Smith coming back, with Tyron Smith coming back, I think they maybe overestimated their game plan, meaning they've been good with the run, but they didn't stop doing things when they didn't work. So that's always a strange one for me, right? Like, what is that definition of insanity, is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results? So it's not that I don't want to give credit to the safety. We'll give all the credit, but the tackling in the middle, part of that was a little bit weird. Not weird, but it was a little bit like, okay, well, this isn't working, but we're just going to keep doing it. And doesn't always work. I know they were scoring points and it was just an interesting one, but sometimes you have to make decisions that are going to limit the number of possessions your opponent gets. And those decisions were not being made. Like, not throwing shade, but a little bit of shade. Like, it didn't make sense. So there were some things that were a bit nonsensical that were done there. Mm-hmm. So I love those numbers for the defense. They did what they responded to what they were given, and that's exactly what the defense needs to do. But often what the Jags don't do well is they typically don't adjust in second halves to teams quite as well. So the Cowboys were unable to exploit that fact from them, right? So that's kind of, I think maybe they were like, oh, we got our left tackle back. We are good to go. No need to adjust. But I mean, perhaps it was they underestimated because they looking ahead to the Eagles. I don't know I'm not in their heads, but I did see some things that I wouldn't expect to happen in this game based on what I've seen this offense do, the adjustments they've been able to make in game, and how second halves look, a lot more favorable than first if something isn't working.
It feels like the Jags have a lot of a handful of pieces on defense and like recognizable names. Foye Oluokun, I mentioned him, Devin Lloyd and Trayvon Walker, 2 first-round rookies. My guy Folaronso Farukasi, former Jet.
We love Foley.
We do love Foley. And who else? There was someone. Oh, Josh Allen, you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
This might sound like this might not be an answerable question. Maybe it is. Who is the Jags' best player on defense?
I honestly, it'd be hard to say it's not Josh Allen, because he's been pretty consistent. We've seen some inconsistencies from some of the other players that have been a little strange. And their secondary, though they just coming off a game with 2 interceptions, their secondary, I told you have a massive advantage if you have a very good corner. They could use an advantage like that, right? Like they'll be in good shape drafting next year because they won't need the quarterback and they have some good pieces there. But the coverage situation is a bit different. I mean, like I said, CeeDee Lamb at the intermediate level was pretty wide open, and so their secondary is where I'm like, interesting, right? So that could be an area to exploit for Garrett Wilson.
It's a great point, and I just want to mention, like, for Jets fans, Josh Allen's been the most consistent Jacksonville Jaguar defender over the past 4 years since he was drafted in 2019. That's when he had his best year. Yeah, he had 10.5 sacks in 2019. Then he had 2.5. He was hurt that year, only played in 8 games.
Yep.
He had 7.5 last year, and he had 5 this year. So all this to say, Josh Allen is a very good player. but it doesn't feel like he's a game wrecker that like in terms of the NFL standards. Now, I'm not saying he's a bad player. Of course, like if you're going to let somebody like this wreck the game, he'll wreck the game, but he's not a consistent game record over the course of an 18-week, 17-game season. So with that being said, let's just wrap with this then. Obviously, we talked about this earlier, about this being like a do-or-die game for the Jets, playoff implications for both teams. Yep. Jacksonville is within a game of Tennessee of the division now, with Tennessee being 7-7. What is the Jets' recipe for success against the Jacksonville Jaguars this Thursday night at MetLife Stadium?
Slow possessions, slow grinding. I mean, look, it's not sexy, but get the chunk plays where you need it, but don't need to rely on chunk plays to get the win. Exploit the secondary with smart plays. Eat up time off the clock, because I love the Jets defense. Let me be clear. I think the Jets have an awesome defense, but you know what? Trevor Lawrence is also pretty darn good. And it's much better to have control of the ball possession. It doesn't sound sexy, but the highest probability way to win football games in the NFL is to run the ball, to possess the ball, or use your run game efficiently or short game efficiently. It doesn't need to be running specifically, it can be shorter passes, but non-stopping clock situations, and have an expert defensive front that can pressure the pants off of the other quarterback, so you're not allowing them to pass the ball effectively. That's the time-honored best way to get wins, most highest probability way to earn wins, is to have that formula. So the Jets have it, and that would be the smartest. And by the way, I wrote an article, NFL.com, we do teams on the bubble, and both teams, this game switches things from maybe 30s and 40% chance of creating a playoff run to 60s. So the one, it's kind of winning your end. This is basically like a play-in game, right? The March Madness tournament, this is like the Tuesday game, this is an important one.
Yeah, this is it feels like a week 16 winning in situation based on the probabilities that you just laid out. And for the Jets, they've been saying, all the players, we have to win out. We have to win out. We don't want another team to dictate our destiny. So the Jets have to take care of business. That starts Thursday night in Week 16 at MetLife Stadium, as the Jets will be rocking the stealth black on stealth black on stealth black outfit.
I love that. Listen, the green's my favorite. Gotham green is the coolest and the best, but the black on a Thursday night, it's getting juicy in here. I like it.
Yeah. Yep. As the CEO and owner of the Jets tweeted, night mode is activated for Week 16. Yep.
It's very Batman of them. Very, very Batman.
It is very Batman.
Very Gotham.
That's a hot button debate, though, because supposedly, and I'm sorry if this is going to burst somebody's bubble, supposedly Batman was filmed in Chicago, but everyone thinks Gotham is New York. So this is perplexing.
Gotham
this
green.
Is kind of
it's a...
Wait. So do you think that Gotham is New York or Chicago?
Gotham is New York. I mean,
okay.
And just because they probably filmed in Chicago because there was it was cheaper or something, it'd clear the streets more easily, right? New York is a really busy place. You're gonna have to spend a lot more money to get. So I think they were smart, right? Film in Chicago, call it New York. Who cares? You're good.
And New Yorkers just they work smarter. They do work hard, but they also got to work smarter. So they said, you know what? They said, we're taking our set to Chicago because it's cheaper, and thank you very much for the memories. But Gotham is New York. Cynthia, the former Chicago native, Chicagoan? Is that what you call it?
Chicagoan. I was a Chicagoan for a long time, but I think all my New York friends would be like, we like it. It's a baby New York. You're second city.
You're our Chicagoan, though. You're the podcast Chicagoan, because it's sure not me. And if you're saying that it's a New York, that Gotham is New York, that's what we're going with, because you won't hear me complain about it.
Nobody, you poll anyone, even in Chicago, be is Gotham Chicago? They'd be like, no. What are you talking about? No.
Gotham's New York, okay? The Jets need this game. That's how we wrap up the Game Preview podcast. Cynthia, I know that you have some work on your hands with the gift shopping. Good luck with that. I hope you have a wonderful holiday, and we'll talk to you next week.
Perfect. Thank you. Happy holidays. Enjoy your cake and the football. It's going to be great.